The American continent is the second largest in terms of territorial expanse, covering virtually the entire planet from north to south. Divided into three parts, we have North America, Central America, and South America. However, this is a more modern perspective. For a long time, it was divided into just two, Latin America and Anglo-Saxon America. The older division was based on the colonization of territories, where in the north, the United States and Canada were primarily colonized by the British and Dutch, while in the rest of the Americas, the majority of colonizers were Portuguese, Spanish, or French. But why, in a continent colonized by Europeans, are there such stark differences in the present day? Why do countries like the United States and Canada have a strong economy and impeccable quality of life, while Latin America suffers from poverty, inequality, and a multitude of other social problems? What's happening in Latin America? Welcome to our channel, and in today's video, you will understand a bit about the issues affecting Latin America and, most importantly, why they occur. But before that, please give the video a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Also, activate the notification bell to stay updated on new content. Leave your comments below about what you think is happening in Latin America and why most of the American continent simply can't thrive. I'd really love to hear your opinion. Without further ado, let's get into the video. 100% colony. As mentioned earlier, the entire American continent was colonized. It all began in 1492 when Christopher Columbus arrived in what is now known as the Caribbean. At that time, the discovery of the New World piqued the interest of much of Europe, as they saw the opportunity to conquer new and completely unexplored territories. Portugal and Spain quickly initiated the colonization process in what became known as Latin America, while England focused its efforts on North America. In the south, diverse natural resources were found, particularly an abundance of gold. In the north, the only thing that existed was an expanse of fertile land, but it didn't offer immediate wealth. This led to the adoption of different colonization models. While the north experienced what's called settlement colonization, in the south, it was exploitation colonization. The differences. In a colony of exploitation, as the name suggests, the main goal is to exploit the natural riches found in the territory, and that's exactly what Portugal and Spain did in Latin America. Due to the abundant natural resources, the objective of the Spanish and Portuguese crowns was singular: to explore the territory to the fullest and send these riches back to Europe, especially gold. In the north, England didn't have much to exploit, and unlike what was happening in the south, it invested in colonizing the new territory so that its new inhabitants could cultivate the existing lands and gradually build a new civilization. The north had a certain degree of independence, where they could have their own systems of government and laws, although they were still subject to the authority of the crown. In contrast, in Latin America, the government was completely centralized and was carried out by appointing rulers and local administrators directly by the crown. The colonizers in the north aimed to attract a large number of European settlers, including farmers, artisans, and families, encouraging them to settle permanently and participate in the colony's development. In the south, having large populations of European settlers wasn't the plan, and often these areas were inhabited mainly by temporary workers, miners, and traders seeking to profit from the exploitation of local resources. This changed when slavery began, which further discouraged Europeans from settling in Latin America. Moreover, the primary goal of Europeans coming to the central southern part of the continent was to exploit as much as possible and return home laden with wealth, without even considering the idea of settling in the New World. All this context created a North American society focused on work and the development of their lands and communities, which would eventually become major urban centers. This led to immense economic and social development because, eager to progress even further, Americans heavily invested in education and infrastructure. In South America, things were different. In the southern part of the continent, the few Europeans who accepted supervision over exploitation received large land properties, which were dominated by a few, creating social inequality from the outset. Another issue is that, due to all their wealth going to the crown, meaning European colonizers, Latin American workers received breadcrumbs, if anything, and in exchange, they expected the crown to take care of all their needs, fostering a dependency on their rulers, a dependency that apparently still persists to this day. The exploitation continues. More than 500 years after the discovery of the Americas, and with the vast majority of territories now independent from their colonizers, the problems in Latin America persist. But why can't such a prosperous territory, with immense wealth of natural resources and agricultural lands responsible for the largest productions on the planet, thrive? What's really happening in Latin America? Well, many of the issues that arose during colonial times are still present in the region, perpetuating cycles of inequality and hindering balanced and sustainable progress. We can mention several problems that prevent prevent Latin America from thriving like North American countries, but one of the main issues is the unequal distribution of land. The concentration of land in the hands of a few, a legacy from the colonial period, remains a significant problem. Large rural properties often belong to local elites or foreign companies, while small farmers and indigenous communities face a lack of access to land, limiting their economic opportunities and increasing inequality. Another critical issue is the lack of equitable access to education, resulting in educational disparities between different socioeconomic groups. Poorer populations have fewer opportunities to receive quality education, perpetuating knowledge and opportunity inequalities in the job market and resulting in countries with little industrialization that are highly dependent on the exploitation of natural resources. The intensive exploitation of natural resources, dating back to the colonial period, benefits foreign companies and local elites, leaving communities with few economic and environmental benefits. This also leads to environmental degradation and population displacement, significantly decreasing the quality of life for the people. However, these problems could easily be resolved with targeted government investments to improve quality of life and overall development for the population, if it weren't for one small obstacle. Something you've probably heard about before: corruption. There's a well-known story of a man considered a hero who essentially robbed from the rich to give to the poor, the famous tale of Robin Hood. In Latin America, Robin Hood's deeds might have been misinterpreted, as apparently, in this continent, the rule is to steal from the poor to give to the rich. Systemic corruption and impunity in many Latin American countries can be traced back to the colonial past, where elites and authorities often operated for their own benefit. However, that past is long gone, but in the present day, the activities continue along the same lines. In Latin America, corruption is a systemic problem that affects all levels of government, from the highest echelons to local spheres. Let's take Mexico, for example. In 2017, after the arrest of some officials, a public opinion survey was conducted, where 90% of Mexicans emphatically stated that they considered their country's government to be corrupt. In Brazil, for instance, a 2019 survey estimated that the country loses around 200 billion reais annually due to corruption, equivalent to roughly $40 billion at current exchange rates. However, the most alarming thing is that these aren't even the worst cases of corruption uncovered in Latin America. Take a look at this map, showing a study conducted by the Americas Quarterly website, which displays the level of corruption in various countries across the Americas. The more yellow and closer to 100, the lower the corruption, and the redder and closer to 0, the greater and more constant the corruption cases. Now, look at the North American countries like the United States, which scores 73 on this scale, and Canada, which scores 81. Yes, they also have their problems, but nothing compared to Latin American countries, where almost all of them have extremely high levels of corruption, with Venezuela standing out, experiencing an unprecedented crisis and scoring only 19 on this scale. Perhaps now we have the answer to what's happening in Latin America. Imagine if all that money that went into the hands of politicians and big business had been used for education, industrialization, healthcare, security, and overall improvement of people's quality of life. Surely, the landscape would be different, and this video would be about celebrating and showcasing all the progress that the Latin American continent would have achieved, inspiring the rest of the world. Unfortunately, that's not what's happening, and everything indicates that it won't happen in the near future either. But what about you? What do you think of this context? Do you believe that corruption is the major problem in Latin America and that, if it didn't exist, everything else could be easily resolved? Or do you think the problem might be something else and that a deeper analysis is needed to understand what's happening on the continent? Let me know your opinion in the comments. Thank you very much for watching this far, and if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up to help the channel reach more people. Subscribe if you haven't already and hit the notification bell to stay updated on our channel's latest developments. A big hug and see you in the next video.